All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and step back a day because I messed up. So today is lesson one. Yesterday we did lesson two. So this one ought to be pretty easy for you and shouldn't take us all that long. But how can I use place value and properties to add and subtract decimals? Recall that numbers with digits in the tens place, hundreds place, and beyond are called decimals. And that's the numbers that are like right here. So you got like, say, 21. That's a whole number. These are whole numbers, and then anything you have like after this, these are decimals, if you guys remember that. All right. So again, we're going to be rounding today, which we did yesterday in our assignment. That's why this is going to make this way easier today. So math in my world, example one, Andrew's laptop has a processor with a speed of 2 and 8/10 gigahertz. Round the processing speed of the laptop to the nearest whole number. So we could use a number line. This is kind of what I showed you guys a little bit yesterday by using the number line. If some of you guys were confused on that. Um, so we're looking at 2 and 8/10. So as I did yesterday, I said, well, look right here. This is like 2.5, right? Or 2 and 5/10, 2.5. So you want to look at this number line. You're going to be like, well, like it said here, if you draw 10 equal increments in between here, we'd have there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that would be the 10. And then if you put 2.8 on there, you have, again, this is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, or 5/10, 6/10, 7/10. So the 2.8 would be right here. So as you can see, it's closer to this number here than it is to this one all the way over here. So that's why when we did the rounding yesterday with the decimals, it's because it's closer on this side on the number line to 3. So it's closer to 3. So round 2.8 to 3. All right. Again, this is all repeating. I literally, key concept when rounding decimals, you're going to underline the digit in the place where you want to round. I did a little bit different yesterday. I've been drawing arrows and stuff, but again, you're going to underline the digit in the place that you want to round. And then you're going to look at the digit to its right. All right. And if that digit is 4 or less, you're going to keep the underlined digit the same. And if the digit is 5 or greater, round the underlined digit up to the next greater digit. And you're going to drop the digit to the right of the underlined digit. So it's pretty easy. Tenth, we're going to round this number here to the nearest tenth. Now, yesterday, all we were doing is rounding to the nearest 1 or 10. But now you got that th on there, that tenth. So that means we're talking about the decimal. All right, the decimal. And I believe we did this also yesterday where I said, this is the ones, these are the tens, and down here you have tenths, and then here we have hundredths right here. All right, and then we have the decimal right in between it right there. So we're going to be rounding to the nearest this number right here on this one right here. And so we look at the tenth, which is, again, we're going to underline the digit that we're wanting to, as it said to do up here. We're going to underline the digit in the place that you want to round. So that's going to be the tenth. And we look at the number to the right of it, which is the 3. And then we decide, hey, is that, as it said up here, 4 or less, we keep the underlined digit the same. Well, obviously that 3 is 4 or less. So we're going to keep this a 7. So we're going to write down here, this is just going to be a 7. And we're going to drop the digit, which would have been this one here. And that's how we round to the nearest tenth, because this is the tenths place right here. So we don't need anything in the hundredths place anymore. So 46 and 73 hundredths rounds to 46 and 7/10. Let's go ahead and dive over here into the independent practice. Okay, over here it tells you what to round to. All right, what to round to. So this is the hundredths. So we're going to go over here. We're going to find the hundredths place value. And again, I would write this up here if you have to, right? Ones, tens, tenths, hundredths. Of course, you can do thousands, but they don't give you any right there. And then that way you know where you're at on this number line. So we're going to do the hundredths. So you can see right here, it's the second one. So it would be, so we underline this one, which is the 7. We look at the number to our right, which is a 6. If that is 5 or more, we're going to raise the 7 to an 8. So this one would be 5 and 48, and then we drop off that number right there. So we round that to the nearest hundredths. Again, the TH is the main thing. If it said hundreds, like down here at the bottom where it says ones, that's a big difference. All right. So right here, hundredths again. So we go and we look as well. It's the second one to the right of our decimal. So we're going to underline this 2 here. And then we're going to look over here at the number to its right, which is a 5. And that is 5 or more. So we're going to take that 2 and we're going to raise it to a 3. Now, some of you guys yesterday, you weren't writing all these other numbers down. You were just writing the 3 or whatever. Well, you have to write all those other numbers down with it. All right, but the only one that you're changing was that one right there to the nearest hundredth. You couldn't even see that, and you have it in the camera, but there you go. All right, so the next one is 28 and 6/10, and we're going to round it to the nearest ones. So you can see the ones right here. It's the one to the left of the decimal point, all right? So we're going to say that 8. We're underlining that 8 right there. We look at the number to our right, which is a 6. It's 5 or more, so that means this 8, we're going to go up. So we're going to write down the 2, and we're going to change that to a 9, and we drop that off right there. So through the nearest ones, that would be a 29. Number 5, 4 and 35 hundredths to the nearest tenths. So again, we're going to look at tenths. Well, there's your tenths. That's the first one right here, which is the 3. So we're going to round to the nearest tenths right here. All right. And we look over here to our right, which is a 5. So that's 5 or more. We're going to raise the score as you guys do. We're going to raise it. So we're going to write the number down there with the decimal because we're not changing that. We're only changing that to a, and then we drop off the 5. Okay, 110 and 79 thousandths. All right, thousands. We're going to round to the nearest hundredths. So again, we look and see where the hundredths is at, which is the 2 places over to the right. So it's going to be the underline the 7 right there. We look over to the right of our number. That is a 9, which is obviously 5 or more. So that means we're going to raise this 7 to an 8. And then you drop this off. So that's going to be an 8. So we write 1, 1, 0. And then we write 0, 8. That's to the nearest hundredths. 67 and 142 thousandths to the nearest ones. Again, we see where the ones is at. Well, it's the one to the left here, so it's the 7. We look at the number right next to it. That is a 1. That is obviously not more than 5, so we're going to leave this at a 67. So we basically drop off, boom, 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 all those right there, and then this makes a 67. 1 and 8/10, the nearest ones. Again, ones is the spot to the left of the decimal. So the nearest ones. We look at the number to the right, and that is an 8. That is obviously more than 5. That means we're going to jump this 1 up to a 2. We drop that off, so that's what we have there is just 2. Again, just to show you, if we were doing this on a number line, you look at it's between 1 and 2. Which one's it closest to, 1 or a 2? Well, if you did a number line here, you would have, here's 1.5, right? 1.8 would be like over here. It's closer to this 2 than it is the 1. 7 and 358 thousandths. We're going around to the nearest hundredths. So again, we look over here at the hundredths. It means we're going to go over 2 spaces from the decimal, which is going to be the 5. We look at the number to the right, which is an 8. That is obviously more than 5. So we are going to round that 5 up to a 6. And then we drop off that 8 because we don't need it. 48 and 32 hundredths, the nearest ones. Again, we look up here. Ones is to the left of the decimal. So it's going to be that 8 right there. We're going to look at the number to the right, which is a 3. That is not 5 or more. So we're going to keep this a 48, and we drop those off. We drop off the ones that we look at. Down at the bottom, the last 3, 9 and 45 thousandths is to the nearest tenths. So again, we look at the tens, which is the first place value over to the right of the decimal. So it's going to be the 0. We look over at the 4. That is obviously not 5 or more. So that means we're going to leave that as 0. So we're going to say 9.0, and we drop off those 2 right there. And in that sense, we can probably just put 9, but just to keep with what we're doing, we do that. 19 and 25 hundredths to the nearest ones. So we look over here and we say, well, again, ones to the left of it, one space. So that's the 9. We look over to the right. That is not 5 or more, so this stays 19. Cross those out. And then last but certainly not least, we have 8 and 17 hundredths to the nearest tenths. So we go up here, we say tens. Well, it's one space to the right of the decimal. So we're going to be to the nearest tens, which is right here. We look at the right. We say, hey, that's 5 or more. It means we're going to raise this 1 to a 2, and we're going to drop that off. So it's going to be 8.2 for our decimal. Backside. What is the length of the $10 bill to the nearest whole number? Okay, so when they say whole number, that's going to be the nearest 1, basically. Okay, the nearest 1. So you look at that and you say, well, let's look over to the right. That's obviously 5 or more, so we're going to raise that 5 to a 6. We drop that off, so it's 16 centimeters. And the weight of a new touchscreen device is 1 6/10 pounds. What is the weight to the nearest whole number? So again, the nearest whole number is the nearest 1. So we look over at our 6. That is obviously 5 or more, so we're going to raise this 1 to a 2. And we're going to say 2 pounds. It's like my room looks like all the time. All right, so that's pretty easy, guys. I know that was kind of review from yesterday a little bit. You guys mainly you rounded whole numbers yesterday, and you did decimals today. So on your homework today, again, keep close attention right here to where it says to the nearest hundredths. Again, I would write right here. I'm going to write it right here so you guys can see it. I would do the same thing as I walk around. I would like to see that you have this written down also. Again, that's on you if you don't. Tens. And then we have hundredths right here. Put your decimal point right there. That way, whenever you're doing this, you can say, oh, well, nearest hundredths, well, it's going to be the second number, so it's going to be that number. And then draw your arrows so you know which ones that you got, so that you guys know which ones you're going to be using. All right. So go ahead and work on pages 307 and 308 as your homework. Turn it in the math box when you're finished.